morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice Radio. So today, we're going to be looking at another really weird, really good Pokemon TCG deck that was made by the lovely Shintaro Ito. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. That same dude that went and won the World Championships with Mega Ordino. The same dude that went and showed us that the new Charizard is actually a good, viable Pokemon. The same dude that pioneered that weird Stage 2 deck with Super Boost Energy and Slacking and Meganium. He seems to have a way of viewing the Pokemon TCG that the rest of us just don't have. The good news is, I'm here to show you his latest creation, and ladies and gentlemen, it is an absolute doozy. It all revolves around a Vileplume that we'd all long given up as being a little bit terrible. It's the one from Burning Shadows, and put it this way, I didn't have a copy of this in the folder of images I use when I make videos. That's how often I've talked about this card. Once again, proof that there's so many cards that everyone goes, oh, they're terrible, they're never going to see play. And yet all it takes is one deck to break it wide open. So this Vileplume then, what does it actually do? Well, it's got the ridiculous ability Disgusting Pollen. And it says that for as long as this Pokemon is your active Pokemon, your opponent's basic Pokemon cannot attack. It blocks basic Pokemon from attacking. Now, first of all, Tag Team GXs at the moment, like Pikachu and Zekrom, are absolutely nuts good and taking over the format. Secondly, we've got these quad decks at the moment. I've shown you Buzzwole and Pheromosa, and I've shown you Blacephalon, link in the description. And these just rely purely on playing 4 of one particular basic Pokemon. So, quite frankly, if you don't play anything other than basic Pokemon, yeah, that's it. This locks you out of the entire game. You lose straight away. Literally cannot win the game unless your opponent happens to deck out. There is nothing you can do. Game over, man. Game over. Clearly, there is a slightly potential issue with stuff like Zoroark here, because we do still have some decent evolving Pokemon that attack. There are a lot, and I mean a lot, of Pokemon around at the moment that are basic. And if we look at, for instance, the International Championships in Oceania this past weekend, we saw that the top decks were basically Malamar decks that all tended to use basic attackers like Ultra Necrozma, Pikachu and Zekrom decks, Zapdos decks, Naganadel decks that tend to use Blacephalon, and then some Zoroark decks which included stuff like Lycanroc. So, yes, the Zoroark / Lycanroc kind of decks are a problem. Outside of that, we are in an extremely basic heavy meta at the moment, and that's why this Vileplume all of a sudden becomes good. But we can't just go, Vileplume, it's great. We need to build a deck around it. How do we do that? Well, starting off, ladies and gentlemen, we block. What we have here is an Eevee and Snorlax Tag Team GX. Eevee and Snorlax Tag Team GX is a big boy. A very big boy. 270 HP big, to be precise. Why do we end up playing this over something like Celebi and Venusaur? Well, firstly, it uses colourless energy, but then again, we're playing grass energy. Why not Celebi and Venusaur? Essentially, you don't get the first attack. The first attack with Eevee and Snorlax that lets you attach energy from your hand to your Pokemon can be used to set up your Vileplume. That's really, really handy. Secondly, you're not weak to Blacephalon, which is one of the big quad decks running around at the moment over in Japan, whereas Celebi and Venusaur actually is. So we block with that. We then see one copy of Buzzwole and Pheromosa. It's huge. It's a big, bad Pokemon, and you can sit there in the active, and essentially Buzzwole and Pheromosa, 30 to the active, 30 to the bench, while it's really hard to KO. Eevee and Snorlax, attach an energy from your hand, while being really hard to KO. Celebi and Venusaur doesn't have a single energy attack, and it has the same weakness as Buzzwole and Pheromosa, and if you're playing a couple one-offs to try and block in the early game, maybe give them different weaknesses. That might be a little bit of an idea. I adore this. I think this is absolutely wonderful. And there's only one other Pokemon we're actually worried about here, and it is Virizion. Why would you possibly want Virizion here? And the answer is, in this particular deck, it's nuts good. Now, the main attack here, we don't care, like, at all. Oh, 50 damage, yeah, 130 if you play it as a supporter. And look, there'll be times it's useful, but it's not the reason to play it. One colourless energy, draw 2 cards, that's going to help you get your Vileplume out. And then one colourless energy GX attack, pick up as many of your Pokemon in play as you like. So this is used to clear the bench. Get rid of any non-Vileplume Pokemon and just leave Vileplume out. And it reads, put any number of your Pokemon in play and all cards attach them into your hand. Yes, that does include Virizion. And then you've just got Vileplume left. And look, if you end up in a position where your opponent is playing an evolved Pokemon and Vileplume's not going to be good, then you've got to try and win the game with Buzzwole and Pheromosa and Eevee and Snorlax, both of which can actually match up pretty nicely against Zoroark. Because that's the other reason we want Eevee and Snorlax rather than Celebi and Venusaur. Eevee and Snorlax, okay, it's for 4 energy and that's expensive. Easy 1-hit KO on a Zoroark, while Zoroark's struggling to 2-hit KO. Celebi and Venusaur doesn't 1-hit KO Zoroark until you get 4 energy on and use a GX attack, and that's just getting messy at that stage. Make no mistake about it, ladies and gentlemen, this is a Vileplume deck. This is made to be a Vileplume deck. And this got 3rd place this weekend, and I believe that was the very, very large tournament of about 1,200 people. I could be wrong about that, but I believe it was a very large tournament. And yet he gets 3rd place with Vileplume, of all things. Now, in terms of the energy line here, you're playing double colourless energy. Largely, this is for Eevee and Snorlax. It doesn't do a huge amount for Vileplume, but it does do a lot for Eevee and Snorlax. Counter Energy, on the other hand, will do a lot for Vileplume, especially when combined with Counter Gain, which, if you're behind on prizes, will turn it into a 1-energy attack, and then we've got some Grass Energy. And before we rock up into the trainers here, we should remind ourselves what the attack for Vileplume does, because once you've got your Vileplume rolling, you're gonna need to attack. 2 grass, 1 colourless energy, 60 damage, flip a coin, head sleep, tails confusion. So either they've got a 50% chance of attacking next turn, or they've got a 50% chance of attacking next turn. I know, right? The difference is sleep, they know going into the turn they're not going to be able to attack. Confusion, it's 50-50 when they get to the attack. Now, in terms of the trainer line here, obviously we're playing Rare Candy. That's fairly important for a Stage 2 deck like this. But the other card which we really need here, it's Green Search. And look, I know at this stage it's getting a little bit repetitive. Green Search is phenomenal. It's a 4-of in this deck, and we've seen it as a 4-of in a whole bunch of decks. If you've got no Pokemon in play with an ability, search for any 2 trainer cards and put them in your hand. Alright, when you've got Vileplume out, it's useless, but until then, you're absolutely golden. But there are a few other weirder cards we see here. We see a full 4 copies of Pokegear 3.0, because it helps you get your Green Search. I mean, your other supporters as well, but mostly for Green Search here. We see 2 copies of Last Chance Potion. Yeah. That one, ladies and gentlemen. Last Chance Potion says that if you've got damage counters on, and you've got 30 HP or less remaining, heal 120. Well, something like Zoroark's going to do 120, you're going to have less than 30 HP remaining, and you can heal up entirely. There's no choice band against Vileplume here. This is wonderful. We also see 2 copies of Unmanned Power Station. Turns off abilities of EX and GX Pokemon. That's not a concern for you. that's seeing a lot of play in Japan. 1 copy of Life Forest Prism Star, heals 60 damage and special conditions. Along with Last Chance Potion, it gives you some nice healing. And then as well as the previously mentioned Counter Gain and Counter Energy, we also see 1 copy of Counter Catcher. You don't mind going behind on prizes with this deck, because you want to get to the point where all you've got left is Vileplume and you lock your opponent out the game. So who really cares? Go behind on prizes, take advantage of these, and then whittle it back and win the game. And we have 1 copy here of Palace Book. Now, annoyingly, this has not been released outside of Japan and is honestly fairly unlikely to be. It's an item card that says, draw 3 cards, then your turn ends. It's quite nice just because you don't need to attack every turn once you got Vileplume out, and in the early game getting Vileplume out is usually more important than attacking anyway, so just chill, play this, rock on. And then everything else here is slightly more like we would imagine. 4 copies of Netball, it gets your basic grass Pokemon. It really is your Oddish, which is the most important early, but you also get basic grass energy if you wish, or instead of. 3 copies of Ultra Ball, 2 copies of Nest Ball. You need to get your Pokemon out. Ultra Ball gets any, but you've got to discard from your hand. Nest Ball gets basics without the discard. We see 1 copy of Switch to get your Pokemon out of the active, which could be fairly important. 1 copy of Energy Lotto, which searches out your energy, especially good for the special energy we've already mentioned here. And then in terms of supporters, we've got 4 copies of Lily, because drawing in the early game is good. No Cynthia here because you want the rare candy Vileplume combination. So drawing rather than shuffle drawing sometimes increases the odds, because instead of having to draw both versions, you can just keep a rare candy in search of Vileplume, or keep a Vileplume and draw to try and get the rare candy. 2 copies of Erica's Hospitality, like I've just said. You want to be drawing, not shuffle drawing here. Erica's Hospitality is good. 1 copy of Ace Roller to both heal and get Pokemon you don't want off the field. And 2 Guzma to drag Pokemon active. Very good if they then can't attack, while also allowing you to have a bit of a switch. This is a weird deck. This is not a deck that was on my radar, and I don't believe it was a deck that was on your radar, or in fact, pretty much anyone's radar other than Shintaro Ito. Frankly, this is great. Couple one-offs and then just 4 free Vileplume line and we're off. There are plenty of decks which are not going to be too worried about this, and yeah, you've got your 1 Eevee and Snorlax and you've got your 1 Buzzwole and Pheromosa, but let's be honest, ladies and gentlemen, that's not always going to win you the games. But if you can go into the right meta with this, oh my goodness, it's amazing. So ladies and gentlemen, this is a stage where I want you to tell me what you think about this deck. So please do go nuts in the comment section, but please do remember to be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all of that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And do please make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays for some more Wassy action. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.